Hello. Many a problem has arisen from a great misunderstanding between the laws of earth and of nature and the laws of heaven and the cosmos. The first law of thermodynamics is the main obstacle we will run into when trying to accomplish carbon capturing from the atmosphere. Let's start with an example we can easily understand. In a house, suppose you have a refrigerator. Suppose it's hot outside and you want to cool the whole house down using just the refrigerator. Can you open the door to the refrigerator and cool down the entire house? Well, the answer is no, you cannot. Even if the refrigerator is 100% efficient, you will only keep the temperature of the house the same. There is really no such thing as cold, only the absence of heat. Heat from the room can be moved into the refrigerator and replaced with cooler air, but that heat is then trapped in the coil and then dumped outside of the back of the machine. So if you leave the door open, it does nothing. In fact, it'll actually make the room hotter because some of the electricity used to power the machine is also converted into heat. Now, let's take a look at the entire planet. Out here we have space, or the ether as it's called, and the sun's rays strike the atmosphere of the Earth. And the problem with CO2 is that it traps some of the solar radiation that would otherwise bounce back out to space. You see, the Earth is essentially an open system when it comes to cosmic energy coming in and out, but it's a closed system when it comes to mass transfer. Mainly, except for a few space objects such as Elon Musk's Tesla out there. But for the most part, what is physical matter stays on Earth, but the energy can go back and forth. So, why must we use solar energy for a carbon capture device? Suppose you invent a carbon capture device. It only releases 1 pound of CO2, but it pulls in 8. And this is a fantastic machine. A real marvel. But much like the refrigerator, if you go back in time, you'll find that the fellow that drove the truck that hauled the device around and all the factories that made all the parts had emitted up to 100 pounds of CO2 or some such figure as that. You'll never get more CO2 absorbed than you have emitted. This is the laws of physics, the laws of conservation of mass and conservation of energy. However, if you use the sun, you can accomplish the same thing that a tree would accomplish by using the elements of the earth: soil, solids, earth, water, and air, and sunlight. By using those things, you can take what is in the atmosphere and put it back into the earth. That is the most efficient way to put what was taken from its place back into its place, without adding extra heat to the environment. If we create a device that is like a tree, but artificial, not alive per se, then we can accomplish the same things as a tree. This is why solar energy must be used. The sun gives energy freely, but the earth only lends energy to be returned from when it was taken. This is why we have graveyards, because what you have taken from the earth, you have to put back to the earth. Those are the rules of mortality. In the same way, physical items used for energy here all stay here and have to be returned to the earth at some time or another. When mankind was a simple creature, nature was in a better state of balance. If a branch falls off a tree and is dried out, someone can chop it up, use it for firewood, and the CO2 emitted is simply reabsorbed by the forest. But when you chop down all the trees and pull oil from the earth, what you have done is essentially put the sun on overtime or double time. While the sun continues to put energy onto the earth, you are now releasing past stored energy from the sun also onto the earth. So this naturally would cause a warming effect. There is some permission to use these fuels from the earth, but when the extent of the usage becomes as drastic as it is today, it will have some effect on the environment. Now, when it comes to alchemy, there are certain things that were used in the past, certain ways of thinking that now lend themselves to our situation. You see, in the past, elements weren't tiny microscopic items of purity. No, they are what we would call the states of matter in today's world. For example, earth would be represented by solids. Water would be the representative form of liquids, air, the representative form of gas, fire, the representative form of plasma, and space, the representative form of ether. Now, in a philosophical sense, if we personify those elements as people did in the past, that allows us to put our imagination into those elements and see on a much bigger picture what's going on. That's why I use alchemy as a tool to solve these problems, because you can finally see the forest for the trees. You will find that nature is already giving us the answer. The very symptoms of climate change that we are afraid of are actually the solution to the problem. The mixing of air and water in hurricanes, the mixing of soil and air in dust storms, the mixing of air and earth in floods and earthquakes, droughts, volcanoes, hurricanes, tornadoes, all of these things are the great alchemical furnace that is seeking to restore balance to the system that we have disturbed. If we were to help it along, the impacts wouldn't be as severe. As we create solar panel technology and wind technology and other things that rely on cosmic energy, items such as gravitational absorption from the tides, we will still burn petroleum in that process. But at some point, by creating that technology, we will be left with items that can then harvest the natural free energy from the cosmos, and we will no longer be trapped in this karmic cycle of destruction. It will take a while, probably hundreds of years, but I believe that it can be accomplished. In fact, it must be accomplished, lest we return to the state of caveman.